You know how when you're desperate for money, you'll take any job out there? Yeah, that's where I've been all month. I've been looking to get any scrap of cash flow that I could. So when I saw this ad for house sitting, I snatched it right up. I mean, what's a better gig than that, huh? I'm not watching anyone's kids. I don't have to make sure that a dog or cat doesn't get loose. I just need to flick on some lights, collect the mail, and make sure that people don't think the place is empty. A worst-case scenario, I'm going to be watering a few plants in the morning. And the job pays well, too. I didn't think that there was any reason to pass on it. The place is out in the middle of nowhere, closer to the desert than the actual city. Nevada, right? I think that there should be some kind of warning sign before you get too far out into those sand dunes. Like in the cartoons, those big Acme warning signs. Nothing beyond. World ends. That was the first thing that I thought about when I pulled up to this place. The house itself was big, fancy, with a bunch of windows in the wall. The owner was already gone, but the key was under the mat, and she left a bunch of notes inside. "Thanks, Charlie," said one note. "I totally appreciate it. You shouldn't have any problems here. Just remember to lock the door before it gets dark and keep it that way." Kind of an odd one, but whatever. Clearly, the owner was a little paranoid, or else they wouldn't have hired me to sit around and take up space. I wrote it off almost entirely and just went about my day. The day passed in a blur. I didn't actually have to do anything. I was able to spend the day drawing, watching TV, and eating the food left in the fridge. It was a weekend gig and one of the easiest jobs that I've ever had. If both days went like this, I was going to leave them a note and let the owner know that I would come do this for them anytime. Speaking of time, I was so focused on the picture that I was painting on my tablet, I almost didn't realize the time. A great buzzing sound caught my attention, a preset alarm on one of the clocks in the house. I hurried to turn it off. It was set for sunset? Wow, that lady was really serious about locking the doors before dark. With the alarm shut off, silence once more swept through the room. I went to the back door first and clicked the lock, and then went to the front door. As I drew closer to the front door, I realized that the knob was turning. A bolt of cold fear slammed into me. I threw myself forward, shoulder hitting the door hard and snapping it shut again. Click. The lock was flipped. I slid the deadbolt into place too, just in case. I didn't want whoever was on the other side busting in here. The handle shook and rattled. Then, someone knocked on the door. Heart hammering in my chest, I backed away from the door. "Who are you?" A young child's voice answered. "Can I come in? I'm lost." Something about the sound. It made all of the hair stand up on the back of my neck. I moved to the side, to the big wall of windows. Carefully, I used 2 fingers to catch hold of the curtain and peel it back away from the glass. Outside, the twilight hour had cast everything into shadow. The stretch of darkness seemed to spill from the sky onto the earth. That was just what happened out in the desert. All that flat earth stretching out into nothing. It could swallow you up in a matter of seconds if you strayed out too far from the road. And people got lost out here all the time. People got lost, and they never came back. The porch light must have been solar-powered because it had clicked on. The light illuminated the form of a child, maybe 12 years old. The boy was dressed in a t-shirt and jeans, totally normal to look at. His hair was short but not shaved, and he wasn't sporting any injuries. He wasn't skinny either, and not particularly dirty, like someone who had gotten lost and spent a lot of time outside might have been. For some reason, seeing it was a kid made me feel worse. "Where are your parents?" I asked through the glass. I spoke loudly so he could hear me. He knocked again, as though he hadn't heard me at all. He asked,
"I'm lost. Please, Charlie, let me in. It's dark out and I'm scared."
I froze. "How do you know my name?" The child lifted his hand to knock again, and then paused, as though trying to come up with a plausible answer. Then he turned and walked toward the glass window instead, almost robotically. The curtains were mostly drawn, just the section I had held open allowing me to see outside. Just like at the door, he knocked on the glass. 3 single sharp raps.
"Charlie,"
he said.
"Charlie, let me in. I'm scared and it's dark. You don't believe her, do you? We won't hurt you if you open the door."
"We?" That word cut through me. But it wasn't the most frightening thing about the situation. No, that would be the fact that the child's eyes were pitch black, like coals. He had no whites and no colors, just glinting black pupils that took up the whole surface of his eye. He reached down, palms flat, and made to try to slide the glass up. I freaked out and grabbed it, pushing it down. But the window had been nailed shut already, on the inside. There was no way for the child to open it. This seemed to enrage the being, who started to pound on the glass with both fists. I dropped the curtain and backed away from the window, both hands up to cover my mouth. My eyes were wide and the fear made my legs tremble.
"Let me in, Charlie. Let me in."
The black-eyed child screamed at me.
"Let me in! Open the door! Open the door!"
Those last 3 words seemed to be stuck on a loop. The child screamed them at me at the top of his lungs as he pounded on the windows. I retreated into the kitchen, away from the glass, and grabbed a big butcher knife out of the drawer, just in case. But he didn't break the glass. All night long, the black-eyed child banged on the window. He screamed and begged and pleaded and threatened. I sat on the kitchen floor clutching the knife all night. And the moment that the first few rays of dawn's light cut through the air around me, the sounds stopped. A few minutes after that, a second alarm went off. I went to investigate it and realized that it had been set to ring at dawn. There was no sign of the black-eyed child when I went and peeked through the glass of the front windows. It was almost noon before I was brave enough to unlock and open the door. There was no sign that my visitor had ever been there. But it happened again the very next night. The alarm went off, I locked the door, and then the child started to knock. It was as though the previous night had never happened.
"Hello,"
said the child with black eyes, pleasant as could be.
"Can you let me in? I'm lost and I'm scared."
And when I said nothing, he began to grow frantic.
"Please, Charlie, I'm so scared. There's something out here with me,"
begged the child. Then it demanded,
"Open the door! Open the door! Open the door!"
The child started to pound on the door with the flats of both palms, and I once more retreated into the kitchen. Once again, I found myself sitting there. All night, the child tried to get me to let him in, but he didn't break the windows. And the moment that dawn's light hit the sand outside, he vanished. I did too. I was technically supposed to stay there the whole second day until the lady got home, but I grabbed my stuff, shoved it into my car, and pulled out of the driveway, shooting her a text and telling her to just Venmo it to me. And I swore to myself that I would never take on another job in the desert. No matter how good it paid, I wasn't willing to have another run-in with a black-eyed child.
Subscribe today or